Hi, guys. Thanks for subscribing. And for those of you that just happen to stop by and see my videos, I hope you'll hit that subscribe button and help me out a little bit. Yeah, my posts have been spotty lately. I am in the middle of a move and I'm doing most of the work myself. I even drove the U-Haul. I've done that before. And I said, I'll never do that again. But then I end up doing it again. Actually, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. You hire workers on each side. Um, but that's the thing. You do need to get lots of help, contractors, handymen, that sort of thing, friends. And it's always going to be a lot more work than you thought. But I have moved back to DC proper after 12 years away. I was in New York for a few years. Yeah, I lived in DC for 30 years. I was in New York for a few years, then in the Maryland suburbs for family issues, and kind of got stuck with COVID and cancer and all that kind of stuff. But I'm back. I am back in DC, ready to get involved in some good trouble. Okay. Uh, Part of that good trouble means giving unsolicited advice to the DNC and to Democrats in Congress and the DCCC and the senatorial committees and all of those things that go together. Um, as a former Republican, before Trump, I left the party, obviously, actually the day after Trump was nominated in 2016. And I'd been a fierce critic of his publicly since it was when he came out and said that John McCain was not a hero and that he likes people who don't get caught, don't get captured. So that was it for me. And of course, I was very public about that on TV. So he just simply erased my TV career because he was tight with Jeff Zucker at CNN and Roger Ailes over at Fox. And yet I just don't go away. So here you go. I'm going to give some good friendly advice to Ken Martin, the chairman of the DNC. And I forget which Democrat is chair of the DCCC of the congressional committee. But here's the thing. And this comes from somebody who has run congressional campaigns, noteworthy ones, heavily trained in this, taught this at the master's level at GW. I taught political communication strategy in the graduate school of political management at George Washington University for about 4 or 5 years. And they asked me to do that because of my successes in politics before that. So I'm going to pass this along to you. This is something that you can do that's not going to cost really hardly any money. And that's key right now. Democrats have to learn how to put together strategies for campaigns and issues and for the midterms and fighting Trump. Pretend that you don't have money and you just have to do it with the right message and tactics. And then you put in the budget after that and then your fundraising plan to get the money at the times that you budgeted for. But if you just think first you just raise money and then you put on a bunch of ads, then what you're doing is letting too much power being given to consultants who only know how to spend money. Listen, anybody can win a congressional race. If you hire some supposedly big name consultant and they say, okay, first put in $1 million of your own money and I'll tell you how to spend it. That is not a political strategy. That is somebody who should not be hired as a consultant. I'm just going to make a lot of people mad here. The fundraising plugs in after you have your strategy and your plan and your messaging so that you know what it's going to take to win. Then you figure out what your vehicles are going to be. What media vehicles? Will it be direct mail? Will it be ads on Facebook? Will it be radio, TV, whatever you need to do? All of that. Then you figure out how much it's going to cost. That's your budget. And then you plug your fundraising into that budget timeline. Okay? This is how you can run a $3 million campaign on 1 million. Or in the smaller congressional districts, you can run $1 million campaign on $500,000. So here's what I think that Democrats need to do now. This is for the midterms. This is for the midterms. And it is a tactic that's not going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to cost you some staff time. Or maybe it's just an email to each of your state parties who then work with each of their county parties. And here's what I need you to do. Even before you get your Democratic candidates for Congress in the House and Senate lined up, even before the primaries start, here's what you can do to help them so that they don't need as much money. And I'm serious about this. I've been doing this a long time. What you need to do is get each of your incumbent Republican members of Congress on the record. If you can't get them on the record in the press, you need them on. Ask them, how do you feel about Trump's idea about Alcatraz, making Alcatraz be? What about Trump wanting to deport American citizens? Yeah. Ask them all of that. What do you think about Trump spending tens of millions of dollars on parade, military parade, while he's cutting key services? What do you think about, the cuts in Medicaid? Get them on the record. And you get them on the record by having someone from their congressional district write them a letter, make a call, email, whatever. Because I started at the bottom, where I was one of those people in congressional offices that had to respond to those letters that came in. It was before email, so that's how old I am. But every constituent who contacted the member of Congress was responded to. And we didn't just say, thank you for your interest, blah, 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 blah. We'll keep it in mind. If it is a form letter that you're sending in, or one of those postcards or something like that, you're going to get a response that's similar. But if you do something that's brief and direct and to the point, that more or less requires a yes or no answer, I think even a handwritten letter, but your emails, you do this. So what you need to do, Ken Martin, is have in every state, have your state parties, or you can contact directly your county parties, your local DNC, your local Democratic parties. Have someone who is a constituent of the incumbent, and eventually, if there's a different Republican candidate, if it's an open seat, ask them directly. And each one should be a separate letter. Don't put all the answers, don't put all the questions in one letter. Ask them, do you agree with President Trump's idea to reopen Alcatraz? Do you agree with President Trump's decision to spend tens of millions of dollars on a parade? And each of these questions requires an answer, which is why you don't put them all in one letter. And then that person whose assignment it is to write in to their Republican member of Congress they then provide that answer to their state party chairman, who then provides it to the DNC. Keep a record of this, because you're going to need that when you get your Democratic candidates to run against these incumbents, or if it's an open seat. You eventually ask these same questions of the Republican candidate if they're not the incumbent. That's a little harder to get an answer, but right now we're talking about incumbents. Get them on the record. People think that means, well, you have to get a member of the press to ask them that. I mean, that would be great. That would be great if you could do that. But I'm talking about collecting this information now. This is very, very valuable research, raw data that your eventual Democratic candidate challenging an incumbent, for example, is going to need. And you can do this. I guarantee you, this will be at least as valuable to that candidate as writing them a big check. And this is something that you can give them right when they become the nominee. Or maybe you want to give it to various primary candidates if there's several Democrats running. So when I put this stuff out there, I'm not doing it to put you on the spot, but it does mean that there are people who follow me here who are going to be like, okay, let's get this done. And they'll put the pressure on you, not to be mean to you, but we are sensing that it's taking Democrats a while to get their footing. There are still no daily briefings that everybody, literally everybody, agrees is a good idea. Again, endorsed by Mark Cuban, the idea that I came up with, wrote about. You can look at my pinned tweet. And that's something that can be done, should have been done, and isn't. So what I'm giving you now is another idea that costs almost no money. It can be conducted through your research department. It could be done literally in a matter of days. I mean, you won't get the information in a matter of days, but you can put that communication out to your state parties, or maybe you have even your county parties on speed email, and you directly communicate with them, whatever is your preferred way to get it out there. But this can be organized so easily. It literally takes merely one person in each congressional district, say that's now where the seat is now held by a Republican, and do it to the senators as well. Collect this information, keep it in a file. And that way, once you do get your candidate, your nominee for these midterms to run against that Republican, they're going to have a treasure trove of information. So here's what you have. You're going to put these Republican members of Congress in a position where they have to say, yes, I agree with the president, or no, I disagree with Trump. Or if they equivocate and give no answer or don't answer you, then you have it. Then when you have a Democratic candidate and they launch their campaign and they launch their rightful attacks against the Republican incumbent, they can say, this is what we know. Our MAGA Republican Trump, you know, but like I wouldn't say that in a speech, candidate, this puppet supports Trump on these heinous things, and then you can list them, or you can roll them out and hit one each week. Just pound away so that the Republican incumbent is always on the defensive. And you have a Democrat running against the Republican who may have no money in the beginning, but they're going to have something to run on. And they'll have a weekly message to pound the Republican on, and that will get them press attention. Then, when they get that press attention, they will attract the money. There is an order to this. And this is how the national parties can be valuable for more than just writing checks. And in fact, this notion of the big money in the PACs, people writing checks to the national party, and then it gets siphoned away to consultants and that whole consultant kickback culture that takes place and a lot of grifters. And the money never really makes it to the races that need it. So what I'm doing now is giving Chairman Martin, something that he can do now that's an action item that doesn't cost money. It's going to make him look very smart and very good, and it's going to be so appreciated by the candidates, by the Democratic candidates running for Congress. And it's going to be so appreciated by the state and local Democratic parties because, frankly, they're coming up with ideas. They're doing what they can. They'll have their little barbecues this summer to raise money. But you know what? And they love doing the protests. But I think smart people who have been doing this for a long time, want to do something that actually matters. So again, we are talking about one person, or maybe you need several people because you want several of these communications going to the Republican offices. So let's say you get a half a dozen people in each congressional district that's privately and secretly orchestrated by the parties, just asking their constituents. They have every right to ask their local member of their congressional representative what their stance is on something. But then you have it. You have a file that this Republican MAGA congressperson agrees with Trump on this, or if they disagree with Trump on it, fine. Maybe you don't say anything. If they equivocate or they don't give an answer, you nail them on that as well. This sounds like it's so simple, but when you think about it, it is very effective. It's a way to have your ducks in a row for the midterm primaries in the season to start heating up. And again, Ken Martin, you do this. You don't need Chuck Schumer's permission. You don't need some big donor writing you a big check, but I guarantee you, if anybody's holding back on money, they see you doing something this smart, this effective, this granular, they'll write the checks. But this has to come first. Show them that you know what you're doing. So again, it seems like a simple and small thing, but just think how valuable this is going to be to a newly minted congressional candidate who's out there trying to get press attention, trying to get their message, trying to have a good, orchestrated, smart, well-researched line of attack against the Republican incumbent. And it's going to help them raise money. And that's the important thing. It will help them raise money locally. It would help them get press attention, which then helps them raise money. And that way they don't have to rely on luck, on redrawn lines, or a big check from the National Party or Super PAC. So I give this advice to you with a good, healthy attitude and in good faith, and very publicly, because I want this to matter, and I want other people to put pressure on you, because again, this doesn't cost you anything. It's smart. It shows you know what you're doing, and it's going to work. I plan on coming up with I already have these ideas, but I'll start rolling out these ideas on a regular basis. And Maybe you should call me in and have a meeting with me. I'm in DC now.